Hello, guys. Welcome to the first episode of this series where we are going to talk about a very useful library for state management inside of React applications. So, this library is called Jotai. You might have heard about it, or you might be, completely unfamiliar with this library, but no worries because in this tutorial, which is going to have 10 episodes, we are going to see Jotai in action inside of a real React project. So you know that on the channel you can find other playlists about state management libraries like Zustand, like Mobex, Redux, and so on. So this Jotai library also, has a very interesting approach to state management inside of your React applications using a concept called atoms. So we're gonna, learn about Jotai in this tutorial in action. As I said, inside of a real application, I have prepared the notes for 10 episodes. And on my other desktop, as you can see, I have created a simple React application using Vite, and I am running it right now in my browser. I am going to create different branches for each episode. Right now we're on this episode number 1 branch, and we're gonna learn the concepts as always, and we're gonna implement them inside of the application. So let's get started with the topic of episode number 1, Introduction to Jotai and Application Setup. So these are the objectives of this episode. We need to understand what Jotai is and why it's useful. We're going to set up a simple application called Book Tracker inside of VS Code using Vite as our build tool, which is something that I've already done. We're going to install and configure Jotai as a dependency, and then we're going to build a minimal scaffold for the application, for the estate, so that you understand how Jotai works, how it's going to approach state management inside of your applications, and then throughout the future episodes we are going to see how we can further customize and configure Jotai to implement the different requirements of the application. So first, let's see what Jotai is. As I said, Jotai is a very lightweight, minimalistic, scalable state management library for our React applications. It's based on the concept of atoms. Atoms are individual units of state. So for example, you know that in Mobex, I have another playlist on my channel about Mobex. We approach state management based on the principles and ideas of object-oriented programming with actions and fields, observables, observers, and so on. So it is interesting that this library, Jotai, approaches the state management requirement in React applications based on this new concept. So units of state, atom. And we're going to see how to define atoms and how to use them inside of our components. Some reasons for using Jotai. Jotai has a very simple API compared to something like Redux. So basically, when you want to create a state, a piece of data for your application, you declare it like this. So this declares like a piece of state for your application with an initial value of 0. And then you can access this atom called count atom from your components, and you can change the value. So no context boilerplate, derived atoms are also possible to implement. So chances are you want to create an atom not based on initial value, but based on the values inside of other atoms. So computed state. Asynchronous atoms, built-in fetch support, and fully reactive driven. So you do not need to write any other piece of code in order to make Jotai integrate with your React applications. So atoms are asynchronous. I think I didn't talk about this. Atoms are asynchronous, and they support, for example, fetch if you want to communicate with a backend. This is the code that you need to run in order to create this React application using Vite, the name of the application is going to be book tracker. This is something that, as I said, I have already done. So this is the application that we're going to work with, right? So if I take you to package.json, this is book tracker, and right now I do not have any specific dependencies. Now we're going to install Jotai. So this is, the code that we need to run, and then this is the, let's say, the structure of your application so far, right? So we're going to have a folder called atoms. These, this folder will host the atoms of Jotai that we're going to create. Then we're going to have our components. We're going to have another pages, folder, and the two other components. And then we are going to create one single atom. So inside of the atoms folder, we're going to create this file called bookatoms.js. And as you can see here, I am importing atom from Jotai, and I am creating an atom. This atom is an array, and the name of the atom is books atom. So let's go ahead and first install Jotai and then create these book atoms inside of the atoms folder. So inside of the folder, I'm going to create atoms, and I'm going to call it bookatoms.js. Bookatoms.js inside of atoms folder, and now the code to install Jotai. I'm going to bring up my terminal, and then I'm going to close out this guy, and then I am going to run the npm install Jotai code. So the package is installed now, and in the bookatoms.js, let's go ahead and create a single atom. I'm going to import atom from Jotai, and then I'm going to create a single atom called books atom, which is an empty array. Now let's continue with the notes. So let's talk about the code. As before, this is something that I do in almost all of my tutorials. In the first few episodes, I need to go through everything in full detail. But as we, as we become more familiar with the concepts, I do not explain things in excruciating detail anymore. So, first off, we need to understand every single thing. So in this code, as you can see, we're creating a state unit called books atom. So this is the way we, create an atom. So it starts with an empty array as the default state, of course, and this atom can be read and updated from any component using useAtom. So basically, now that you have created this atom, you're exporting it. You can access it using the useAtom and from other components and start using it. So now let's talk about an atom itself. What is an atom in Jotai? So an atom is a piece of a state. Think of it like useState variable. So we know that using React, we use useState as a hook to create local state inside of a component. So it is very similar to useState, but the difference is that it allows you to access a piece of state that is stored in your, state management library thing globally. So it is not, useState creates a state internal to a component, but when you say useAtom, you are accessing a global piece of data that has been created inside of, your state management code. So every atom is self-contained, so you can manage and share state without creating global context providers or reducers. Very easy then. We just need to create the atom, and then we're going to use atom in our components to access that atom. So benefits of Jotai atom: no boilerplate, of course. You do not need reducers, actions, context providers. It is very granular. So only the components using that specific atom will re-render when that atom changes. It is very fine-grained, very granular, and composable. So atoms can depend on each other. You can derive a state from other atoms, like computed values. We have a similar concept in MOBIX as well. In MOBIX, we can also have derived or computed values. So in Jotai and with atoms, you can do the same thing. Now let's create the first component. So inside of the book list component, as you can see, I am importing the atom we just created inside of book atoms file. I am importing use atom from Jotai, and then I am creating this, I am accessing the atom we created. So the atom returns an array. The name of the atom was books atom. I am using use atom to access this, which is an array, right? And I am going to capture it here in this books const. And then I can do things with it. For example, I can check the length. Length is 0, then I'm going to render no paragraph. I'm going to render no books found. Otherwise, I'm going to map through it. And for each book that I find there, I'm going to render an li element. So I defined, once again, the atom somewhere, and I am accessing it in my component. So let's go ahead and create this book list component in my components folder. I'm going to go to my src, components. The name was book list. Yes, book list. And then I am going to write the code for the book list component. I'm going to import use atom from Jotai. I'm going to import books atom from my book atoms file, and then export my book list component, accessing the books atom, and then checking the length of the books array. If it is 0, we're going to return no books found. Otherwise, let's map over it, and for each book that we find there, we're going to render an li element. And we're done. So this is the simplest component that we could possibly have. So in this component, as I told you, we're using use atom to access the books atom to read the value. The component will automatically re-render if the value inside of the atoms change. So if the value changes, so the reason is that this atom could be accessed from other components as well. So whenever that value changes, the component will re-render automatically. So here, as I showed you, we're displaying a list of books if there are any, or a fallback message otherwise. Now let's talk about using this component. So inside of app.jsx, we're importing the component and we are rendering it here. So let's go ahead. Inside of app.jsx, I'm going to remove this line of code. I am importing book list. Then I am going to create my app component. The name of the application, and then the single component that we have. And now let's export the app component. So if I refresh now, this is the application, and because there are no books inside of my application, inside of my store, I have nothing. So it says no books found. Let me go ahead and remove my styles as well. So this is the application that we have right now. So let's get back to the notes. So yeah, running the application, you should see an empty book list because there are no books inside of that array inside of our state. So the wrap up of this video, we talked about Jotai. Jotai offers a minimal API without reducers, actions, stores, context providers, and it encourages splitting your state into smaller reusable atoms. We created a simple Vita application. We installed the Jotai library or dependency, and we created the first atom, books atom, which was an array. And our app now renders a list of books from that array if there are any books. And if there aren't any books, we're going to render a single p tag saying that no, books found. And that's it for this, episode. If you enjoyed watching it, please give it a thumbs up. Share the video with a friend. Stay tuned for the upcoming videos as well. Bye-bye.